If you have a piece of paper and a pencil out, that would be very helpful for this lesson. This is for 6th graders, and if you were in the class, you would have been reading a book called Daniel's Story. Some of you might have actually read it in middle school. And this lesson comes out of a theme in that book about resistance movements. The only other thing I'm going to say to you is I don't use learning target with my middle schoolers. I use learning objective, and so I'm not going to change that because I will actually teach this later on in the year. Okay, so today's learning objective is I can analyze 3 different approaches that the Jews used to resist the Nazis while they were held in concentration camps. Can you please write that down? Now I want you to turn to your, silently answer these 3 questions. What do you know about resistance movements? What do you want to know about resistance movements? And what does analyze mean? You can turn to your partner and share one answer.
During the time of the Nazis, it was really dangerous.
Do you know?
I just said it was going against something. Maybe something like the norm.
They would take mine on that and we realized that had like fighting there too. Like they would hide them.
I was thinking of like,
Hide in and then sneak them out of there to make it good. That was like one part of
what do you want? What do you want to know, Britta?
Both groups. I would like to know how they work and if they are effective or if they're ineffective, and specifics about
And how do you classify?
I don't know much about it.
That's what I was, yeah,
Like what
I agree with that. So I was like, what were they doing to resist? Like refusing to do this work?
like an individual radical doing something versus or something. I want to hear success stories or like stories. Yeah, I just think
That'd be cool.
helps me.
Okay, clap 3 times if you hear me. Does anybody have an answer for what do you want to know about resistance? Or, I'm sorry, what do you know about resistance movements? Does anybody know anything? Go ahead.
So I described it as one group resisting or fighting back against another group that has control.
Okay. And what do you want to know about them? Go ahead.
I'd like to know what classifies a resistance movement as compared to something that might not quite make the cut.
That's a good question. And does anybody have an answer for what does analyze mean? Go ahead.
To take something apart and look at all the little pieces,
Yeah.
to look closely at the pieces.
Okay, so we're gonna look at 2 words and use the Freyer model. So on this side of the room, I'm gonna have you go ahead and do sabotage, and on this side of the room, I'm gonna have you guys do resistance. So I'll give you about 3 minutes to do that. And you can use the whiteboards.
Are we working together?
Yeah, working together.
Oh, okay, cool. Who wants to write on the board?
Wait, and here's your marker.
She said just the Oh, the hat? I'm finding them.
Alright, you wanna just do one? Here, I'll do definition over here.
Say what? You are one.
Okay, this side of the room is doing sabotage, and this side. Yeah, and this side of the room is doing, I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. You guys can break up into 2 groups. Okay. I'm not being clear, that's me.
Oh, we already joined that. We got right sides
Can
all
we
day.
work as one group?
Like the French resist. I wasn't clear. You're gonna resist.
We have a resistance bar.
Wait, you have the wrong word for that. Yeah.
Something that has.
In our own words.
To do somebody disrupt. Disrupt, undermine. Undermine authority.
Characteristics, evil intent.
Maybe like underline the
Not if you're the
purposes
Rebel Alliance and you're sabotaging the Sith Empire.
of another.
But you're still like doing the other guy in.
Of another something.
So
I was
maybe
just
it's like
thinking of
evil
another.
for your opposition.
Yes. Right, depending on your point of view.
Is it evil intent or intent to do harm? When they might not be synonymous.
It's intent to disrupt.
Could be for very
Sabotage
reasons.
a job interview or
Depending on your point of view. Yeah.
I would think that.
I mean, really, Luke Skywalker is a terrorist, right? He's an enemy of the state.
So I just as a qualifier.
I think an example could be us erasing everything they write on the board.
Taking someone else's work as your own.
Well, what would you do with it?
No, but now they failed.
Like, if I impersonated you online and then started doing really embarrassing stuff for you, that would be sabotage. I'd be sabotaging your personal brand.
Slander, not sabotage.
Well, if I'm doing it as you, it just looks like Alyssa's online telling us all these terrible things that she's done.
You're slandering my good name.
Sabotaging your future as a teacher.
Well, slander to another is sabotage. Cooperate.
Nice.
One example? To support their cause.
Is slander a non-example or can slander be sabotage?
I think slander can probably be sabotage.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then it could be.
okay.
Another good 6th grade word.
Is that a 6th grade word? Oh. Another.
We're only 6th graders. We are very well-read 6th
Clap 3
graders.
times if you heard me. Let's go ahead and work with the sabotage group. What did you come up with for the definition?
We said that it's to disrupt or undermine the purposes of another, be a person or a group or
And give me an example.
erasing someone's work would be sabotage.
Yeah, that is sabotage. In the classroom. And the non-example.
To cooperate or to help them.
Okay. And over here on the resistance side, one of the groups, if you give me the definition.
We said resistance is fighting against the group in power.
Okay. And can you give me an example?
We have 3.
Okay.
The recent Black Lives Matter movement, French resistance, Revolutionary War.
We had examples from the civil rights movement sitting in, at the lunch counter.
All right. For the sake of time, we're going to keep going. So there were 3 main resistance movements I'm going to cover. There are many other resistance movements during World War II with the Jewish concentration camps, but for the purpose of 6th grade, you have to keep it PG. Open resistance is hard to do because it can get you killed, basically. But the 3 types that I'm going to cover is alleviating suffering of camp inmates, escape, and sabotage. Alleviating suffering of camps inmates. It was to attempt to gather food and medical supplies. If you happen to be in a camp in Poland, you were better off because the Polish population was more willing to help than the German population with this. And the Jews who were working in the administrative offices and medical, cooking, they were the ones smuggling in supplies into the rest of the inmates. Escape. Escape is another form of resistance. It's not the best version of resistance. As at Auschwitz, 76 escaped and only 12 avoided recapture, and those who were recaptured were usually sent to the gas chamber. In Treblinka, 200 escaped and only 20 avoided recapture. The main point of this was to inform the outside world what was really going on. Sabotage. Sabotage is the destruction of equipment to manufacture products, and a lot of times what would happen is the Germans were running out of people to work in factories because they needed them to fight on the front lines, so they brought in the Jews to work the factory lines, and the Jews didn't want to do that, so they were doing all kinds of things to stop production. They would break machines. My favorite one was airplanes. They would go and attach the wings, and then when the Germans were about ready to take off, the wings would just fall. So those were, many of the weapons also failed on the battlefield because of that. And what's great about sabotage is the Jews were actually helping the Allies in the war from this. Okay, so there are 3 corners. I want you to pick your corner. Choose which resistant movement you would follow. 1, for alleviating suffering. 2, for escape. And 3, for sabotage. Go ahead.
What situation are we in?
You are going to pick which corner for which resistance movement you would like to.
For any reason?
Yeah, any of the 3.
Where's the snake?
I know, I would be really
No. We're alleviating suffering.
You're over there.
You go sabotage over there.
Okay, if you have a partner to talk to, please turn and discuss why you would pick this particular resistance movement.
I picked this because I wouldn't be very good at
Yeah, and I feel like you could also, well, like you said, like escaping is to bring knowledge of what's going on inside, and so as long as you like find one ally to take you in and keep you safe, then you're good to go.
Like, how else would they know everything going on inside, like the gas chambers or something like that? Probably found out from one person that escaped. So even if they got recaptured, they brought that knowledge out.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you're sacrificing your life, but you know,
It's worth
we're
it.
strong like that.
It's a resistance. You're trying to help other people as well.
Yeah, I feel like being part of a resistance movement, you're already kind of putting up to the risk of potentially dying.
Yeah,
so.
any of this you get hurt. This one just seems like the most extreme right away.
Yeah.
When you think about it, oh, escaping, you can get caught and killed or something.
Yeah.
And sabotage will get us too.
Yeah. Because they probably found out that when people were sabotaging all their weapons, that they knew who it was.
So, alleviating the suffering group. Why, can someone volunteer why you went in this corner?
So we did not want to go on escape because we felt like we wouldn't make it. And then for sabotage, we feel like we wouldn't have a positive impact. We felt like it would be more negative. We would either hurt somebody, we would mess it up and not have an influence. This one we felt like was the more positive influence. You're saving people rather than hurting people.
And how about the escape group?
We chose to escape so that we could bring knowledge of what was going on. So even, we kind of figured that being in a resistance movement is dangerous and you risk your life anyway, so why not escape and try and bring knowledge to what's going on the inside.
And the sabotage group, who would like to represent them? Why would you take the sabotage?
Or the quiet scheme.